I thought I'd heard everything after 43 years of marriage. But when Margaret sat across from me at our kitchen table last Thursday and said, "Robert, I think it's best if you don't come to the cottage this Christmas," I felt something inside me break like ice on a lake in spring. "What do you mean don't come?" I asked, putting down my coffee cup. She wouldn't look at me. "The kids think, we all think, it might be easier if you stayed home this year. You've been so difficult lately." Difficult. That word hung in the air between us like smoke. Difficult how? I asked. "You know how." She said, using that voice she'd started using about a year ago, patient but tired, like she was explaining something to a young child. "At Thanksgiving, you argued with Trevor about his business. At Emma's birthday, you made that comment about her boyfriend's tattoos. The kids are tired of walking on eggshells. Trevor was our son. He was 41, divorced, and worked in marketing. Emma was 38, our daughter, and a social worker. Good kids. I thought we'd raise them well. I was having conversation," I said. Trevor asked what I thought about his idea. "You called it impractical." It was impractical. He wanted to quit his steady job, to start a podcast about cryptocurrency. I was being honest. Margaret sighed, that deep, disappointed sigh I'd been hearing a lot lately. "That's exactly what I mean, Robert. You can't just be supportive. Everything has to be your way, your opinion, your judgment." I sat there looking at the woman I'd loved since 1979. We'd met at the University of Toronto, married young, and built a life together. 3 kids, a house in North York, good careers. I'd worked as a civil engineer for the city for 35 years. Bridges, roads, the kind of work nobody thinks about until something goes wrong. I was good at it. I took pride in it. "So that's it?" I asked. 43 years and I'm uninvited from Christmas? "It's not forever. Just this year. Give everyone some space." She reached across the table like she might take my hand, then pull back. "Maybe you could spend it with your brother." My brother Paul lived in Vancouver. We talked maybe twice a year. "Right," I said. That night, I lay awake while Margaret slept beside me. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I thought about all the Christmases at the cottage, the family tradition we'd started when Trevor was 5, the snow, the fireplace, Margaret's meat pie, the kids opening presents, grandkids running around in the last few years. And now I was being cut out of it like a tumor. The next morning, Margaret had already left for her book club when I woke up. There was a note on the counter. "Didn't want to wake you. There's coffee." I sat in my workshop in the basement most of that day. I'd been spending more time down there lately. It was the only place that felt like mine anymore. The house had slowly changed over the years into Margaret's space, decorated with her taste, organized by her rules. But the basement was still mine, filled with my tools, my projects, my way of thinking. I'd been working on something for the past 8 months. Nothing the family knew about. They probably wouldn't have cared if they did. To them, I was just old Robert messing around in his workshop, avoiding real life. But this was real, more real than anything I'd done in years. It started with a conversation I'd had with a former co-worker, David Chun, at a retirement party back in March. David had gone into consulting after leaving the city, working with tech startups on building projects. Over drinks, he mentioned something that caught my attention. Biggest problem in modern construction, he'd said, is coordination. You got architects, engineers, contractors, suppliers, all using different systems, different software, different measurements. Half the delays and cost overruns come from miscommunication. I'd nodded. I knew this well. I'd spent decades dealing with it. "Someone needs to build a universal platform," David continued. "Something that translates between all these different systems in real time. AI-driven, maybe, could save billions across the industry." He'd said it casually, already moving on to complaining about his golf game. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, because I knew something David didn't know. Something almost nobody knew. Back in the 90s, when I was working on the infrastructure for the Shepherd subway line, I developed a coordination system. Nothing fancy, just a way of standardizing communications between different contractors. It had worked so well that they'd used it for years afterward. But it was analog, paper-based, limited. The city owned it, and eventually it was forgotten as new technologies came along. But I still had the principles, the methodology, the framework, and I've been thinking for years about how to modernize it. After that conversation with David, I started working, really working, not just thinking or planning, but building. I taught myself Python, studied machine learning, read everything I could about modern construction technology. Margaret thought I was just wasting time on the computer. The kids made jokes about Grandpa learning to code. But I was building something, a platform, an algorithm, a solution to the exact problem David had described. By November, I had a working prototype. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. I tested on old project data I still had access to, and the results were remarkable. The system could reduce coordination time by up to 60%, cut costs by 40%, and catch errors before they became expensive problems. I showed it to David, just casually, over coffee. Remember that conversation we had? I've been tinkering with something. He looked at my laptop screen for 5 minutes without saying anything. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize. Robert, he said slowly, do you understand what this is? A coordination platform. No, he shook his head. This is a billion-dollar idea. This is industry-changing. How long have you been working on this? 8 months, give or take. He laughed, but it wasn't a normal laugh. It was shocked, almost breathless. You built this in 8 months? By yourself? It's not that complicated. The core principles are solid. I just needed to translate them into modern technology. David leaned back in his chair. Robert, I know people. Venture capitalists, tech investors. Can I show this to them? I shrugged. What did I have to lose? My family thought I was outdated anyway. Sure, I said. Why not? That was 3 weeks ago. David moved fast. He connected me with a firm called Apex Ventures, based in Toronto. They specialize in construction technology, and they were very interested. We had meetings. They asked technical questions, business questions, market questions. I answered them all. I'd spent 35 years in this industry. I knew the market better than most people half my age. They wanted to move forward. They wanted to invest. But more than that, they wanted to acquire the technology outright. They offered to buy the platform, hire me as chief technical advisor, and fast-track development. The number they mentioned made me dizzy. 7 figures, just for the initial buyout, with more to come if the platform performed as expected. I didn't tell Margaret. I didn't tell the kids. What would I say? Hey, remember how you think I'm difficult and out of touch? Well, I just built something that might change an entire industry. They'd probably think I was losing my mind. So I kept quiet. I worked with the lawyers, signed the papers, set up the deal. It would be finalized and announced on December 26th, Boxing Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. Christmas arrived. Margaret left for the cottage on the 23rd with luggage for both of us, even though I wouldn't be there. Just in case you change your mind, she said. But we both knew I wouldn't. I wasn't going to show up uninvited to my own family Christmas. Trevor called me on Christmas Eve. Hey, Dad, just wanted to say Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, son. You doing okay? Mom said you decided not to come. Decided. That was one way to put it. I'm fine. Enjoy the cottage. Yeah. There was awkward silence. Maybe next year, right? Maybe. After we hung up, I sat in my living room with a glass of scotch. The house was decorated. Margaret had insisted on the tree, the lights, the whole production, even though I'd be spending Christmas alone. It felt like a museum exhibit. Traditional Canadian Christmas circa 2024. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I thought I'd be furious, bitter, resentful. But mostly I just felt calm, peaceful, even. For the first time in months, nobody was disappointed in me. Nobody was sighing when I spoke or exchanging glances when I offered an opinion. It was just me, my thoughts, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. I spent Christmas Day working in my basement, refining some technical details of the platform. The deal would close tomorrow, and I wanted everything perfect. Around noon, I made myself a sandwich, turkey and cranberry sauce, because tradition still mattered, even if family didn't. At exactly 12 minutes past midnight, transitioning from Christmas to Boxing Day, my phone rang. Trevor. Dad. His voice was strange, higher than usual, shaking. What's wrong? Is everyone okay? Dad, what the hell? He wasn't making sense. What did you do? My heart started racing. What are you talking about? Your name is on the news. The CBC News app just sent a notification. It says, Robert William Harrison, Toronto civil engineer, has sold groundbreaking construction technology platform to Apex Ventures for... He stopped. Dad, it says $8. $5 million. I sat down. I'd known the announcement was coming, but I hadn't realized it would be immediate. Midnight on Boxing Day. They'd said. They'd been literal. Oh, I said, that. Trevor's voice cracked. Dad, what is this? Is this real? It's real. You sold something for $8. $5 million? Initial buyout. There's more performance targets are met. Could be up to $20 million over 5 years. Silence. Then, I need to call you back. He hung up. 30 seconds later, Emma called. Then Margaret. Then Trevor again. My phone didn't stop ringing for the next hour. I let most of them go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to 47 text messages, 12 voicemails, and 6 emails. Most were from family members. Some were from old colleagues who'd seen the news. A few were from journalists asking for interviews. Margaret came home that afternoon, alone. She walked into the house without knocking, even though technically she'd left me here by myself. Robert. She just stood there in the doorway. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? Don't play games. The technology, the deal, any of it. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was wearing the sweater I bought her last Christmas, the one she'd thanked me for but never worn. Until now. Would you have been interested? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time anyone in this family asked what I was working on? When was the last time anyone cared about my opinion? Unless it was to tell me I was wrong. You could have said something. I did say things. I said a lot of things. I had opinions and ideas and thoughts. And everyone, including you, made it very clear that those things weren't welcome anymore. Margaret sat down. She looked tired. The kids feel terrible. I'm sure they do. Trevor is devastated. He says he had no idea you were working on something so important. He wouldn't have cared if he did know. 8 months ago, when I told him I was learning to code, he laughed. He made a joke about teaching old dogs new tricks. He didn't mean, yes, he did. Emma made jokes too. And you, Margaret, you told people at your book club that I was going through a phase, that I was having some kind of late life crisis, playing on computer instead of accepting retirement. She flinched. Someone told you that? Linda Morrison. She thought I should know. She also thought it was cruel. Margaret was crying now, not dramatically, just quiet tears running down her face. I'm sorry. For what, specifically? For not listening. For not taking you seriously. For thinking, she wiped her eyes. For thinking you were just my old, stubborn husband who couldn't adapt to how things are now. I am old, I said, and stubborn, but I'm not outdated. I never was. No, she agreed quietly. You're not. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, she asked, what happens now? With us? With everything? I've been thinking about this all night. The deal closes officially today. Apex wants me to start consulting in January, helping their team develop the platform further. They're talking about expansion, international markets, partnerships with major construction firms. That's not what I meant. I know. I looked at her. I think we need to talk, really talk, about the last few years, about how we got here, about whether we can fix this. Do you want to fix it? That was the question, wasn't it? Did I want to go back to being the family member everyone tolerated but didn't respect? Did I want to spend my remaining years walking on eggshells, making myself smaller so everyone else could feel bigger? I don't know. I said honestly. I know I loved you for 43 years. I know we built a life together. But I don't know if I can go back to being the person you all wanted me to be. We never wanted you to be anyone else. Yes, you did. You wanted me to be quieter, less opinionated, more agreeable. You wanted me to just nod and smile and stop having thoughts that didn't match everyone else's. She didn't argue. She couldn't, because we both knew it was true. Trevor and Emma showed up that evening, together, which suggested they coordinated. They stood in my living room looking uncomfortable, like teenagers who've been caught doing something wrong. Dad, Trevor started, we owe you an apology. Multiple apologies, Emma added. I waited. Trevor continued, we've been treating you like you didn't matter, like your experience and your knowledge and your ideas were outdated, and we were wrong, completely wrong. Emma said, what you built, Dad, it's incredible. I've been reading about it online. The articles are saying it could revolutionize construction coordination. One journalist called it the most innovative solution to come out of Canada in the last decade. I don't care what journalists say. I told them, What do you care about? Trevor asked. I care about being respected. Not because I made money, but because I'm your father and I've lived 67 years on this planet, and I might actually know some things worth listening to. They both nodded, subdued. I care, I continued, about being part of a family that values me for who I am, not who they want me to be. I care about having conversations where my opinions aren't automatically dismissed because I'm old, or because I don't understand social media, or because I actually remember what happened the last time someone tried to scheme like cryptocurrency. The podcast wasn't about cryptocurrency, Trevor muttered. It was about investment strategies. It was about cryptocurrency. He smiled slightly. Yeah, okay. It was mostly about cryptocurrency. Emma stepped forward. Dad, can we start over? Not forget everything, but try to do better? That depends, I said. Are you here because you respect me, or because I'm suddenly worth $8? 5 million? Both, Trevor said bluntly. Then, seeing my face, I mean, yes, the money made us realize we've been idiots. But that doesn't make us wrong about being idiots. We were, and if it took this to wake us up, then I'm grateful it happened. Even though I'm ashamed it was necessary. I appreciated the honesty. At least, here's what I need, I said. I need space. Time to think. Time to figure out what I want from the rest of my life, which might be another 20 years if I'm lucky. I'm not making any promises about family dinners or cottages or pretending everything is fine when it's not. That's fair, Emma said. And I added, if we're going to rebuild this, it has to be real. Not just everyone being nice because they're guilty or because they think I'm going to write them into my will. Trevor winced. We deserve that. Yes, I agreed. You do. They left after another hour of awkward conversation. Promises were made, intentions stated. But I'd learned enough in 67 years to know that intentions meant nothing without actions. The weeks that followed were strange. The story of my platform sale made national news. I got interview requests from business magazines, tech podcasts, even a call from someone at Dragon's Den wanting to know if I'd be interested in being a guest advisor. I declined most of them. I wasn't interested in being famous. I just wanted to work. Apex Ventures set me up in an office at their headquarters in downtown Toronto. Nothing fancy, just a space where I could meet with their development team. They'd hired 12 engineers to work on expanding the platform, and they wanted me involved in all major decisions. It was energizing. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I felt alive. I had purpose beyond just existing, beyond just being someone's husband or father or retired civil engineer. I was building something again. Margaret and I started therapy in January. Her idea, surprisingly. We'd sit in Dr. Kapoor's office every Thursday evening and try to untangle 43 years of marriage, examining the good parts and the broken parts with equal honesty. When did you start feeling unheard? Dr. Kapoor asked me during one session. I thought about it. Gradually. Maybe 10 years ago. The kids were adults, making their own lives. Margaret got busier with her activities. I was still working, but the job had become routine. I think everyone just stopped seeing me as someone who was still growing, still changing. I became fixed in their minds as Dad or Robert, this unchanging figure who'd always be exactly as I was. And how did that feel? Like dying slowly, like being erased one conversation at a time. Margaret was crying again. She'd been crying a lot in therapy. I didn't know, she said. I thought you were happy. Content. I thought so too for a while. But content isn't the same as fulfilled. In February, Trevor came to me with a business proposal. His marketing expertise combined with my platform could create a comprehensive solution for construction firms. Not just coordination, but client communication, project visualization, branding. My first instinct was to say no, to protect what I'd built, keep it separate from family complications. But then I remembered what I'd told him. Actions matter more than intentions. Let's see your proposal, I said. It was good, really good. He'd done his homework, identified gaps in the market, created projections. It wasn't just an idea anymore. It was a plan. We spent 3 months developing it together. Working alongside my son, I rediscovered parts of him I'd forgotten. He was smart, creative, genuinely talented at understanding market dynamics. And he listened, really listened, not just waiting for his turn to talk. In May, we presented the idea to Apex. They loved it. They brought Trevor on as a consultant. And by July, he was heading up the marketing division for the platform's expansion into the residential construction market. Emma took a different approach. She asked if she could bring her social work perspective to platform, focusing on how construction projects impacted communities, particularly vulnerable populations. It wasn't about the money for her. She genuinely cared about making sure the technology served people, not just profit margins. We created an advisory board addressing social impacts. Emma chaired it. Her insights about community engagement transformed how we approach project coordination in residential areas. Margaret started taking computer classes. She said she wanted to understand what I'd been doing in the basement all those months. She'd never be a programmer, but she learned enough to have informed conversations about the work. More importantly, she started asking questions again. Real questions, interested questions, the kind of questions that assume the person you're talking to might know something you don't. By Christmas, 1 year after I'd spent the holiday alone, things were different. Not perfect, not magically healed, but different in ways that mattered. We went to the cottage as a family. All of us, plus Emma's boyfriend with the tattoos, who turned out to be a paramedic and one of the most grounded people I'd ever met. Trevor brought his new girlfriend, an architect who'd heard about my platform and wanted to discuss practical applications. On Christmas Eve, after dinner, Trevor asked me to step outside with him. We stood on the cottage deck, looking at the snow-covered lake, our breath visible in the cold air. "Dad," he said, "I need to tell you something." "All right." "Last Christmas, when Mom told not to come, I was relieved. I thought it would be easier without you there. Less tense, less complicated." He paused. "It was the worst Christmas of my life." "Trevor." "No, let me finish. It wasn't just that you weren't there. It was that we'd made you not be there. And the whole time I kept thinking about all the Christmases before. All the times you'd given advice or shared your opinion, and I'd roll my eyes or change the subject. All the times I'd treated you like you were this obligation we had to deal with, instead of someone who loved us and wanted to help." He was tearing up. "My son, 42 years old, cry on the cottage deck. The platform," he continued, "that's impressive. That changed my life professionally and financially. But it's not why I'm sorry. I'm sorry because even if you'd never built that platform, even if you just stayed retired and worked on your projects and lived your life, you still deserve better than what we gave you." I pulled him into a hug. He sobbed against my shoulder like he hadn't done since he was a child. "I forgive you," I said. "But more than that, I'm proud of you for recognizing it, for changing, for being willing to do better. Are you happy, Dad? Now, with everything that's happened?" I thought about it. The platform, the money, the recognition, the family healing, all of it was good, important. But the real answer was simpler. "I'm not invisible anymore," I said. "That's what makes me happy. Being seen." Inside, through the cottage window, I could see Margaret laughing with Emma. The Christmas tree lights reflected off the wine glasses. It looked like a commercial, like someone's ideal of family togetherness. But it wasn't ideal. It was real, messy and complicated, and still healing from wounds that went deep, but real. And that, I'd learned, was worth more than any dollar amount Apex Ventures could offer. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat by the fireplace with my laptop. I was working on a new project, just preliminary ideas, an extension to the platform that could revolutionize infrastructure maintenance, predict problems before they became critical. I hadn't told anyone yet. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But this time, it wasn't because I felt invisible. It was because I'd learned something valuable about myself over the past year. I didn't need external validation to know my work mattered. I didn't need anyone's permission to keep growing, keep learning, keep building. At 67, I was just getting started. My phone buzzed. A text from David Chun. "Saw the quarterly numbers. Your platform is exceeding every projection. You built something special. Robert, Merry Christmas." I smiled and set the phone aside. The fire crackled. Snow fell outside the window. Somewhere upstairs, my family slept comfortable in a cottage that had almost lost me for good. But I was still here, still working, still building, still proving that outdated was a word that didn't apply to someone who refused to stop growing. And that, I thought, as I closed my laptop and headed to bed, was the real victory. Not the money, not the recognition, not even the family healing. The victory was knowing that I'd spent 67 years becoming someone worth listening to, and I'd finally learned to believe it.